I think,
Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Matt Scragg, Warden of the Alderney Bird Observatory, recently appointed. Good to see you, Matt.
good to see you.
Um, when did you start getting involved in ornithology?
Um, I think there's always been an interest in birds, right from a very young age. But I grew up in Cornwall and didn't really have access to any sort of mentors at that point, and so it was very casual, but very much enjoyed watching or seeing yellowhammers and bullfinches, and that sort of thing along the hedgerows near where I was living.
Yeah.
And then the more sort of focused effort, as it were, came on later in life. A a friend had a competition with a friend of hers for an annual bird list, and that kind of started the initial aspect of taking a step back and really looking at what I was looking at and identifying it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I
so so
You, you,
so
right,
you've been
I
there for
don't
a
keep
while.
yeah, yeah. So it's been there for a while. I don't actually keep a go list anymore per se, like those early days. But yeah, it's
Well, as a professional, Matt, it's all in your head now, isn't it? You don't need a list.
it's all recording for reporting purposes now, not just for
Yeah,
personal.
as a hobby, yeah. Can you tell us a bit about the background of the Alderney Bird Observatory? It's been going for a few years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was founded in 2016. So we're just coming up for our 10-year anniversary next year. So yeah, and it's basically the Alderney sits under the East Atlantic Flyway, which is a migration route for a lot of birds. Um, at this point of the migration route, the just after Alderney, the path splits, and so then goes up into the UK one way, and then up into sort of Northern Europe, Scandinavia, following the other route for those species. So it's a key area in terms of migration.
Right. What are the other functions of the observatory? I know that you obviously do an element of ringing and things like that. That's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's part of it. The sort of day to day is completing a census within a designated recording area to conduct bird ringing activities and yeah, and just record all those things and send them off to the relevant bodies in line with accreditation for the British Observatories Council.
Because there is a Channel Islands organisation, a ringing scheme, isn't there? Is that right?
There are 47 different ringing schemes. I think it's 47. Just have to check, but 47 different ringing schemes under the banner of Uring, and Uring is the umbrella organization. That's where all the ringing information is returned to, and so I think people are mostly familiar with the BTO, the British Trust for Ornithology, in the UK. The Channel Islands has got its own ringing scheme. It's very proud to be part of that. It's a small scheme, but it's a very important scheme. It's covering the Channel Islands, and there's a great group of ringers doing a lot of good work down here in the Channel Islands.
Um, Obviously, it's a major tourist attraction for twitchers. Is that still the case?
Um, it's a fine line within the Channel Islands because we don't fall within the British list.
Right.
And so, if you could British list in the Channel Islands, we'd be as popular as the Isles of Scilly for twitchers. But because we don't fall under the British list, we do get bird watchers coming here. But if we have something that was mega rare turn up, we wouldn't get the same sort of response.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I mean, you see the situations in the UK where there's a sighting of a very rare bird, and they travel in their hundreds to go and spot this bird. Seen that several times on the television in the past.
yeah, yeah, that's it. And yeah, it'd be very good for local businesses if we could attract that sort of
Yeah,
numbers.
that's right.
Um, but yeah, it's not as straightforward coming here, as I'm sure everyone's well aware.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're not British listing here, so yeah, probably just keeps it all a little bit more tame.
So you've got all these thousands of birds flying on their flight paths overhead. What have we actually got here on Alderney in terms of indigenous birds?
Um, the, there are some species that are considered sedentary, but through ringing recoveries, it's evident that they are not. So, the resident sort of breeding population of birds would be blackbirds, robins, dunnocks. But even so, we will get influxes of those um, seasonally as
Mm.
they migrate in and off Alderney or through the Channel Islands. Probably the most sedentary species, or the sedentary species that we have here, which have eruption years but don't always move too far, would be dark warblers, wrens, some species like that that don't tend to move quite as much.
And we see swallows and swifts from time to time, but they've migrated in, presumably.
Yeah, migrated through. So we do have a population that come here to breed with the swallows, but on the whole, we do get many thousands of swallows moving through Alderney, and they're all going off up into the UK and Scandinavia and further afield.
What sort of distances are they travelling? If you say,
Well, if you sort of take the swallows, for example, they're a long distance migrant. They're traveling right down through Africa,
yeah,
and back up through again. Um, Swifts, Swifts, one of the first ones to leave, and they're still migrating in November. They're still going south.
that's
Uh,
incredible, isn't it? And I mean,
they start.
some of them are actually flying across the Sahara Desert and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got birds that migrate sort of locally within Europe.
Mhm.
If there's a harsh winter, you'll get some birds moving because of that. But yeah, we get localized migrations, and then sort of further afield, down through sub-Saharan migrants.
What about raptors? What have we got here in the way of raptors?
Kestrel, sparrowhawk, and buzzards. They're the sort of and peregrines. They're the sort of main ones that stick around here.
And they tend to stay, do they?
Yeah, and so we do get migratory individuals of those species moving through.
Mm.
We do have resident birds as well.
Yeah, yeah, interesting stuff. Is it okay to feed the birds in the garden?
Um, it is, but there are diseases associated with communal feeding.
Yeah,
So if if it is that you see sick birds in your garden, it's best to withdraw that feeding station.
yeah.
But in the interim, if you keep your feeding station cleaned regularly, topped up with fresh food, if there's any drinking water available, making sure that that drinking water is replenished or the area cleaned frequently, it does help. Um,
We've got a blackbird, Matt, who's regularly a regular attendee. He eats a lot of suet. I'm worried about his cholesterol.
yeah, the birds are a little bit more self-regulating than we are, and he'll be
So,
burning that
so you think we're
energy.
okay from that point of view? Yeah.
Yeah,
Come,
yeah, it is.
coming back to the flight path, is there any theory as to how they navigate?
There's quite a few theories, and it's there is birds when they've been kept in a captive situation have shown pull towards magnetic fields. The spoonbill sandpiper, which is a very rare little wader, when they were kept in captivity in the UK with the Wildlife Wetlands Trust doing a conservation breeding effort for them, they would tend to lean over to one side of their enclosure or the other side of their enclosure, depending on where in the season it was.
Yeah.
So even birds that are sort of removed from what would be their home range, they're still leaning to want to sort of go that way.
So they're
Um,
sort of affected by the magnetic North Pole, are they?
yeah, yeah, by
Mm.
the
What,
magnetic
what
either
about the
end.
return flight?
Right. Magnetic poles of either direction.
I've never known. Is there one in the south? I don't know. Interesting thing to think about. Now, obviously, global warming is an issue. Have you seen more species as a result of global warming coming through?
Um, Global warming is misleading. Climate change would probably be the better description. So you say global warming, and everyone thinks temperature's going to go up
Yeah, yeah,
by
yeah,
2 degrees. But
yeah.
unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. What we'll experience is a lot more erratic weather patterns, floodings, and things that seem to be on the increase. But yeah, the weather will or the climate will affect um, things like the chiff-chaffs and the blackcaps. At one point, they wouldn't have been found during the winter, but now you can find them in the winter in the southern parts of the UK. They don't migrate as far as they used to, just from having milder winters. But equally, at the other end of the scale, birds that like higher ground or colder temperatures, there's a limit to how far they can be pushed up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. So there we are. Right. Looking at the bird population in the UK, it's declined quite a bit since the 1970s. Got some figures here. Overall, 11%. Farmland birds, 57%. Seabirds, 28% since the 1980s. What do you put that down to?
It's multifactorial is the bottom line to it. There's not just one thing that you can pinpoint and say, oh, that's what it is. Um, but sometimes there is. Um, the case of house sparrows, which is also a very good case in point as to why do we ring birds.
Mhm.
We ring birds to monitor populations, and with the house sparrow, there was a change in agricultural um, legislation, which meant that uh, pesticides and hedge cutting, it changed their time of year. And through bird ringing, they were able to establish, that initially they established that there'd been a population crash, and then they were able to sort of track it back as to when this change had happened that affected the food source because it was the young birds that they weren't getting. Uh, that the food source had been affected for when they were feeding the chicks.
So
Some
they just
small
reduced.
changes. Yeah, the population reduced. There was quite a crash in the population. It is now recovering, but sometimes a small change can have a big impact.
Mm, yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Because I can remember as a child that, there were loads of sparrows around. Also starlings, lots of starlings. Don't
Mhm.
seem to see many of those these days.
On Alderney, the starlings tend to be in town, but they're also another seasonal migrant.
Mm.
So we get to sort of June, July time, we'll have a little boost in population at that point as birds sort of move on to Alderney. And then in the autumn, sometimes we can have roosts of thousands of birds coming into the reed bed at Longy
Hmm.
in those sort of later months. But there is what seems to be a stable population of starlings within the town. So,
Right.
they are still there. It's just that at the moment they're busy feeding young. But yeah, sort of June, July time, there'll be birds that come over from Europe, mainland Europe, and we'll get a few hundreds around.
Mrs. LeBlanc wants to know what's happened to the goldfinches.
The goldfinches are still there. Again, they're another bird that's sort of changed its habitats, but there's a lot more goldfinches migrating and a lot more goldfinches staying put.
Hmm.
I've got goldfinches singing in the background here where I am at the moment. They are still there. Um, it's what's that? How is Mrs. LeBlanc's hearing? Is
Oh, no,
that,
well, no, it's visual because she
yeah,
sits right opposite the window and can
yeah,
see
yeah,
them coming in and going out, and she's okay in the vision department.
yeah,
No, she wasn't listening for bird calls or anything like that. But
yeah.
perhaps she needs to change the brand of suet.
Maybe Niger seed. Niger seed would probably be a good one for them.
When we go back to Surrey on the odd occasion, seem to be loads and loads of magpies around. Never
Hmm.
seen any over here. What's the reason for that?
They don't like crossing water.
Okay, right. Well, that's fair enough, isn't it? I thought we were
Yeah,
going to have a
yeah.
long debate on this one.
No, the last one was recorded in last recording of a magpie in Alderney was sort of 1890 something.
Right,
Um,
really?
yeah,
Yeah.
they don't like crossing water. Uh, that's the bottom line.
And are they part of the crow family?
Yeah, yeah, they're in with the corvids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty vicious things on occasions.
They are a very beautiful and clever bird,
Mm,
as all corvids are.
yeah, yeah. Have we still got ravens here?
Yeah, yeah, still got ravens down on usually see them down on the South Cliffs.
Hmm. So that's the place to go and see them over there.
Yeah,
Um, as part of my research was fairly skimming the top of it. According to the RSPB, turtle doves are on the up and up.
it depends on where you are.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
obviously they were looking at it from the point of view of the UK, but
they're looking at it on the whole on the whole population. There's been a lot of work in the last 10 years improving habitat and food supplies for them.
hmm.
Uh, Again, there's been a lot of bird ringing activity going on with them, a lot of nest monitoring, a lot of field work. So yeah, there's been a lot of research going into them, establishing what is it that was missing as a sort of a food stuff for them. Why weren't they striving and reproducing the way they should be? So yeah, there's a lot of work done into that and re-establishing where they can feed.
Yeah.
So
So is there further research going on with other species to up the numbers?
yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of monitoring going on. We've 21 bird observatories around the UK and down here to the Channel Islands. So there's a lot of, sort of fixed point long term monitoring, but there's also a lot of localized projects and uh, yeah, there's a lot of so there's a lot, but in the UK there's a lot of bird ringers. So a lot of bird ringers putting a lot of hours in studying various species with either colouring projects or tagging projects. But ringers are all giving their time voluntary. Well, most ringers are giving their time voluntary. There's a few different surveying methods like CES, which is a constant effort site through the breeding season, breeding bird surveys. Yeah, lots of things going on that people are involved with.
With the ringing procedure,
Hmm.
how do you pick up the data after they've been ringed?
That's where well, with us, we report any rings that aren't ours back to the ringing scheme,
Right.
and then they send that information off either to the corresponding ringing scheme that it was done, or through your ring if they need to make contact that way, and send that information off, and then that information then comes back. It's shared freely within the sort of member organisations as to what was ringed where, and
Yeah.
then that information is then fed back to the ringers.
So you would pick up these birds in terms of your normal netting procedure. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't find them dead on the side of the road and have a look at the leg then. It's all a question of them making a return to us, and you're able to sort of pick them out and say, "Oh, this wasn't one of ours. This came from so and so." Yeah.
But a lot of the gannet recoveries that we've had have come from birds that have washed up, that have sort of perished,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But that also gives us an idea of how old they are and where they've travelled to. Um, so yeah, so there's quite a few of the seabirds they're recovered as dead, as recorded as dead recoveries. But the day to day with the recoveries that we get, or the controls that we get, they're from our routine mist netting. Yeah, yesterday morning, I had three reed warblers that had been ringed in previous years that had all come back through.
Mm.
Um, so it's a couple, I've not had a chance to look them up yet, but a couple of them are probably birds that were going to be staying and breeding on Alderney, and another one is probably just showing that it's faithful to its migration route.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Being encountered that way.
That's interesting. Um, the RSPB Garden Bird Watch scheme. It's once a year, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. What does that actually achieve? Because I mean, you could have me and my next door neighbour seeing the
yeah.
same bird. Do they have some sort of algorithm to knock out the chances of double viewings or triple viewings or whatever?
I would suspect so. Yeah, you're both going to be. So I've not been in the UK when the great garden bird watch has been going on, but I suspect there is a proximity thing
Mm,
written into that they can then be like, well, you guys are sort of neighbours, and if birds are seen between fixed times in a short space of distance, then they'll be accounting for that.
yeah, okay. But obviously, it's quite a popular way of promoting ornithology, isn't it?
Yeah, it's demonstrating that you can get involved.
Yeah,
The,
that's right.
the
Yeah.
citizen science of it, it's a case of just looking out your window, and you're then contributing to a national statistic.
Mm. Is avian flu still a problem?
It is if you're a bird.
Yeah, but big problem for you, but have we got it here on Alderney?
Not currently. It does tend to be a seasonal thing
Mm.
when the birds come back into their sort of breeding colonies when they're all much closer together. It sort of ebbs and flows. It's a bit like when we as humans come together indoors during the winter.
Yeah,
We're going to get more circulating around between us than in the summer when we're all outside in the fresh air. It's opposite with them when they get into their breeding colonies and they're all on,
but
just.
if they get it, they're dead. Is that right? They don't recover, or
There are individuals that recover.
yeah. Okay, so obviously the strength of the species or the strength of that bird within the species. Now, tell us about any future plans you've got with the Bird Observatory. Any special things going on this year?
Well, we've just this last weekend had the bird race, the annual bird race. So that
Right.
one's kicked off the calendar. Um, and we've had our spring walk.
Hmm.
So I think there's an autumn walk coming up. Well, there will be an autumn walk coming up in the autumn.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think there's a few things in the background, but
Yeah. So
yeah,
watch the local press.
yeah, watch this space. The 10-year anniversary come up. There's sort of discussions as to what we might do for that, but there's nothing confirmed and official yet.
Well, it's something to celebrate, isn't it? To have actually had the thing going for 10 years and it's growing from strength to strength, presumably.
Yeah, exactly. It's becoming very much recognised on the international stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think one of the big things we got coming up this year. Last year they had their first pelagic birding trip, which is getting on the boat and just going offshore and seeing what you can see. And so the plan is to have that again. That'll be in August,
Hmm.
having that offshore trip. But yeah, it's a few bits and pieces. There's Alderney week. There'll be moth morning again, and yeah, bits and pieces. But I
There's a
think
lot happening. There's a lot happening.
yeah,
Matt, it's been a pleasure to speak to you and wish you every success with the Bird Observatory. I'm sure it's going to go very well. So, with that, thank you very much.
yeah. Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.